like you. Be strong to hold the powers of the sun.
All right, so let's talk. Hey, this is Mike Colleen at MikeColleen.com, MikeKollin.com. All right, so let's talk about a quick subject. It is one of the huge red flags that you are dealing with a narcissist. It is possible that they are not a narcissist, but either way, if they are this, and it's called a meta program. If they have this meta program, run. Okay. Now this comes from training by Dr. Ted James. I did a couple of his training, one in Hawaii, it's 5-week training. So I did a couple of trainings with Dr. Ted James, a 5-week training in Hawaii, one in San Diego. I did 2 5-week trainings, and one was in Costa Mesa, and one was right next to, I can never remember the name of the city. So this is over a period of time. So he wrote a book called Timeline Therapy and the Basis of Personality, Dr. Ted James. All right. And in the book, he talks about meta programs. So we're going to talk about one meta program. That one meta program is called mismatching. A mismatcher will mismatch you. Now, there's a range. You have matching, and let's see how I'm going to do this. So you have matching, let's do matching, you got mismatching. So everyone is somewhere along the range, okay? So if you are a salesman and you're selling stuff, you want to be high on the matching range because you want to match people. You want to understand them. You want to find out what they want, and you want to get along with them. Whereas if you're a lawyer or an attorney or something like that, you want to kind of go over to the mismatching side because you want to see, the opposite, how you can win and all that stuff, okay? So here's the problem. In daily life, if you're dealing with a mismatcher, they're going to drive you nuts. So I'm talking about a mismatcher that's further over this way, say more than 50%. I don't really like people that are even 50%. That's kind of a pain in the ass. Remember, it's called meta program. It's literally a program that just runs. These are people that are unconscious. Well, all of us have meta programs, okay? All of us have meta programs, all right? And there's a lot of them.
Now, if you've done a lot of consciousness work, and I mean a lot, you will snap out of it and you will just listen to understand people versus listening to respond. And that's a meta program, is when you're not thinking. And most people, most of the time, like all day long, are constantly flipping from one meta program to another, depending on the subject, okay? My first conscious experience of meta programs was when I was in Hawaii. Again, it was a 5-week training, and every single day we were doing hours of consciousness work to where you're in the conscious present moment and there was no thinking at all going on, to where you have absolute clarity of the mind. During, I think it was a lunch break, we're outside in the hotel lobby and we watched people walk in, and it was like they're robots. It was the most incredible thing to watch. They'd come in, they're going fast, they're from the mainland, the United States. And I remember when we got there, when we first got to Hawaii and we got to the hotel, the lobby, what happened was it was a young lady, Hawaiian, and there was a young guy. They were probably about 20 years old each, something like that. And they just looked at us like they were just looking at us like, what the hell's going on? Because we're going so fast, talking. And they said, it's okay. You have arrived. There's nowhere to go. And I remember looking at them like, what are you talking about? Now, here's the funny thing. We were at our hotel. The class didn't start till tomorrow. There literally was no rush. But being an American, all we do is go and go and go. Rush. This was a huge break in my paradigm of life, and I still didn't get it yet. One thing about the Big Island, or pretty much any of the islands, is there's a constant crashing of the waves day and night, and you hear it in your hotel room because we're right pretty much on the beach, a little bit back, but pretty much on the beach. Day and night, even during the class, you could hear the crashing of the waves over and over. And what it does is it gets you in tune. It gets you to be grounded. And we're also doing a lot of consciousness techniques and grounding techniques and on and on. And so I think it was about the 10th day or 8th day. I don't remember exactly what day. But my roommate and I, Rob, were sitting out in the hotel lobby, And these people had pulled up in a taxi. I remember looking at the taxi cab driver, and he was like, Jesus Christ. And I'm like, what's going on? And the people were talking fast, going fast, and they jumped out of the car, and the taxi cab driver goes, hey, it's okay, you're here. There's nowhere to go. And I was like, why do they keep saying that? And they grabbed their luggage out of the back, and they ran up to the they ran up to the lobby, and then it was the same guy and girl that were there to help them and to check them in. And they were looking at these people like, what the hell are you going so fast for? And they said, hey, it's okay. You're here. There's nowhere to go. And the people looked at them funny like, oh my God, that's the same thing I did. I looked at them like, what the hell are you talking about? And it's like, you're so used to going fast and you're on a program and you don't even know it. And that's, God, I can't, there's so much I want to put in this right here is when you snap out of your meta programs and you're just conscious, you look at other people and you realize, literally, I'm not joking, you're a freaking robot. You're a program and you don't even know it. You're not thinking. There's no thinking going on at all. You're just, and it was just so weird to see, but it was also really cool. Now, here's another thing that happened, and it happened in the same lobby. The cool thing about the lobbies there is there's no doors, there's no walls. It's like only a roof-like thing where you walk under and you go up to the counter because it rains there a lot at times. So I was in the lobby, and I remember talking, but it wasn't me that was talking. And I was like, it was like I was up and behind me, like 8 feet or 10 feet in the air, looking down on myself, watching myself like a Robotron. And I was like, who's talking? Who is that? That's not me. I forget what this is called. You call it third position in timeline therapy, but there's another word for it in other spiritual teaching. I'm drawing a blank right now, but I don't know, maybe they call it first position. But the point being was I was watching myself talk, and I'm like, who's doing that? What it was, okay, this is a very spiritual / conscious moment. It was my meta programs just blah, 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 just repeating words and phrases and paragraphs and sentences that I've said probably 1,000 times to 10,000 times in my life. It was a recorded program that was running.
So the deal with mismatchers is these people just disagree. And here's the thing, they have no rhyme, they have no reason. This is what they do, this is what they are. A lot of them actually enjoy it. They actually like to watch you squirm. Now, those people are narcissists, okay? So
one thing I want to mention is that mismatchers struggle in life socially. They have a hard time getting along with people because when you mismatch someone, you are breaking rapport with them and their unconscious mind. Thus, their body doesn't feel comfortable around you, and they don't like you, and they don't want to be around you. But most mismatchers are so caught up in their head that they don't notice that until the person finally screams at them, and they're like, "What are you talking about?" And then what they'll do is they'll argue and disagree about what you're trying to explain to them. So they have a really hard time getting along with people socially. Okay, but they are very good technically, and that's I'm going to lead into later in this episode here. So one of the things about mismatchers is they can be very good people. They just are argumentative constantly, like every single conversation, every question, every thought. They never listen to understand. In fact, usually they never have a clue what you're actually talking about. They just jump to the other side of the fence and they disagree. You could say, wow, it's a beautiful day. And even if it is, they'll say, no, it's not. So there are techniques that we do use to help people to shift their meta programs. Okay. One thing that I would prefer is you to become a conscious being, to be in the present moment instead of just running on a slightly different program.
a mismatcher, let's say you say, man, it's a real beautiful day today. And they'll argue, no, it's not. Let's say it's crystal clear blue sky. It's 78 degrees. It's warm with a nice cool breeze. It's like fresh air. Like everything is perfect. And you'll say, wow, it's really beautiful today. No, it's not. And they'll mismatch it. Oh, it's that, I can't stand the blue sky. I can't stand 78 degrees. I can't stand. But it's not if they just do it one thing. Like they may generally not like 78-degree weather. Maybe they like really cold weather. I don't know. But if someone just mismatches, that's a mismatcher. Okay, so if you get in a conversation with someone and they constantly argue, they constantly disagree, if you say, hey, let's go left, they're like, no, let's go right. What's another one? If you're looking up, they'll say, oh, let's look down. If you say, hey, let's go, like, no, let's go down. And notice if it's just like an automatic response to where they don't even pause for a moment to ponder it. That means they're not thinking, it's just a program. Okay. Now, here's the thing about narcissists. All narcissists mismatch, and they'll mismatch you to death. And here's the difference, I would say, between someone who's just got an automatic program versus someone who's doing it for sport. The narcissist will have fun. They'll start to get all like excited, and they'll feel good when you're getting very irritated, because it's also very draining. Let me tell you how bad mismatching is. Our training during our NLP trainings, you know what they told us? Because someone said, well, what do we do when we run with a mismatch? Well, the best way to match a mismatcher is to mismatch them. They'll look at you and be like, wow, they will literally tell you, like, wow, you're really smart. That's a true mismatcher. If you mismatch them and it makes them happy, they're going to be like, whoa, you're really smart. And they'll compliment you. So you're a really smart person, or you're really this, or you're really that.
So the reason why they suddenly get happy and they look at you and say, wow, you're really smart, is because you just gained a deep rapport with their unconscious mind. Because the way you gain rapport with people is by matching them. Well, how do you match a mismatcher? You mismatch them, and they will stop. Like, it's like they become conscious in that moment. They pause and they look at you, and for that moment they're conscious, like, wow, that person's just like me. And all of a sudden they found their soulmate.
So here's what they told us. The way you deal with a mismatcher is by mismatching them, because that's how they understand. That's how they process things. It's a pain in the ass, and most people don't like to deal with them. Mismatchers generally have very few friends, and if they do, they're generally they're mismatchers, and they're constantly arguing and fighting with each other, disagreeing, and they waste all this time. They're time wasters. So I remember during a training with John Overdurf in the East Coast, and it was Pennsylvania, Lancaster, that's how they pronounce it, the city. And we had a young lady in the class who was a mismatcher, and she just disagreed. Why? Well, I don't believe that. I don't agree. And just constantly disagreed. And all he did was mismatched her, and she went into a deep trance. He said, well, what would happen if you did? What would happen if you didn't? And she went, what would happen if I didn't? And she came up with the answer, was, what wouldn't happen if you didn't do that? So he was doing the not. So mismatch. And this is what mismatchers do. They use the word not, don't, can't, won't, shan't a lot. So John just threw those at her, and she goes, what wouldn't happen if I didn't not do that? And she literally went like this, and she was spinning. And John went, because she was in her own little world spinning. And when she came out, the mismatching was gone. Okay, so that's a really cool thing. Okay, it was really fun to watch.
Now, one thing I want to mention is this lasted for about 10 minutes, maybe even 15. It lasted a long time. And he literally told her to just go ahead and continue with the process. Now, she's looking down at the ground. She's going left and right, up and down. She's in her own world. And we continued the class while she was doing that. Okay, so one day at Thanksgiving, I did this to my brother Charlie, kind of on accident. He had some kind of problem. We were out in the garage and talking. I forget what it was about. And I used the same pattern. It's basically the 4 quadrants. I'm not going to explain it, but I said, well, what would happen if you did? And he goes, well, then blah, blah, blah. I go, what would happen if you didn't? He goes, well, if I didn't, this would happen. I said, okay. So what wouldn't happen if you didn't? And he looked down. He looked left, he looked right, looked left, looked right, and he was stuck there. And my brother-in-law was there, and my brother Joey was there, and they're like, what the fuck did you do to him? I'm like, just let him go through his process. He was going into a deep trance where what's happening is they are, oh God, what's the word? They're reprocessing all these memories that are coming up from childhood, and they're looking at everything from a completely radically different perspective. In other words, they're realigning everything that they've looked at and processed in the way that they viewed the world, And when he came out of that, his eyes were balanced, meaning the left and right hemisphere were working together. See, not only do narcissists break rapport with everyone they talk to, they also break rapport with themselves, meaning their left side of the brain and the right side of the brain, and it's chaotic, and they're constantly thinking left, thinking right. It is a very chaotic thing. They have to rethink and negate. And here's the thing: it's also very negative, because they always say no, not. Because if you say yes, they're going to say no. If you say let's do this, they say don't or not. And so they tend to live in a very negative world, and it's, again, they're doing it inside to themselves also. So they're constantly arguing with themselves inside. So when a person goes through this realignment, it is the most amazing thing, because when they go into that trance, you're like, whoa, because I didn't technically do any trance work at all. But the process itself puts them in a trance if you catch them at the right time.
But what they tell us is, like, if once you discover you're talking to a mismatcher and they want to be a client, don't let them be your client, or don't meet with them ever again, because every time they have a problem, you're going to have to do this mismatch, and you have to spin and you have to reverse everything constantly. He goes, don't deal with them. Let someone else deal with them. So you can change them, but you have to be damn good at it. You have to know what you're doing. You have to be trained in NLP. And yeah, even then, you have to be damn good at that, okay? Me personally, I don't deal with mismatchers. Once I know someone just mismatches me, I'm like, yeah, hey, how's it going, man? I just agree with them. And that's one of the techniques you can do with a mismatcher, is you can just agree with what they say, with whatever they say. And they lose their steam, like, oh, okay, well, that didn't work. You say, yeah, well, I think it's pretty ugly today. So, yeah, you know what? I think you're right. It is kind of ugly today, isn't it? And let's say it's 100 degrees out there outside, and they say, yeah, I don't think it's that hot. And yeah, me neither, man. I don't think it's that hot. You just agree with whatever they say, and it takes the steam out of their mismatching, okay? So, hey, this is Mike Cooling at MikeCooling.com. Number one, don't deal with mismatchers. Number two, most narcissists are mismatchers, so that's a red flag. So if they're mismatching you, there's a good chance that they're a narcissist. And even if they're not, okay, watch this. I personally don't like it. Now, if you like that, that's fine. I have no problem with that. But I don't want to do it. I like to be with people who do addition. 1 + 1 = 2. 2 + 2 = 3. Mismatchers minus everything. No, not, can't, but. Those are negation words. It's like 1 - 1 = 0. They take your energy. You feel like they're taking away from you. It's something that I don't like and I don't enjoy. And I wish them well. I really do. All right. So I think that's it. Oh yeah, there's one use for true, like way over to the scale, over to highly mismatched, 90% or more. People that are that much a mismatcher, they're really good to bring in at the end of a contract, at the end of a building design. So let's say you're putting together a contract. That's not when you bring a mismatcher in. You keep them out because they will mismatch from the very beginning, and you'll never complete any task. What you want to do is you want to write the contract up and look for everything that could go right and wrong and figure that all out with you and your partners. And then at the very end, when you've completed it, you have the mismatcher come in, because if there's anything wrong, they will see it. Same thing with a blueprint. So if you're designing a building, if you're an architect, if you do blueprints, etc., you don't want them in the process of building it, of building the blueprint, not the building. You don't want to build a building yet. Because they will mismatch it so much, like you'll get nowhere. And this is why conversations with the mismatchers go nowhere. You complete the blueprints and you look at it from every angle, have other people look at it, and then when you're done, you have the mismatcher come in to see if they can find anything. Now they'll mismatch things, but you're like, no, that's not true. That's not going to ruin it, because here's why. But if they can find something, if anyone can find something that you missed, they will. So they're best to bring it at the very end of contract, or after you've already completed designing the blueprints, then have them look at it. So they will mismatch a lot of things, but you'll know if they're right or wrong. You'll be like, no, that's not going to happen. That's going to happen. Here's why. But they will point things out like, oh, shit. Like Elon Musk, there was a spaceship he was about to launch, And some reporter was saying, and the reporter actually knew something, or an interviewer had said, well, what about blah, blah, blah? Won't that blah, blah? And Elon Musk goes, holy shit, you're right. And I think it was going to blow up the chamber, the gas chamber, the fuel chamber, or what, I forget what it was, but it was a complete oversight. And this guy goes, what about that? And Elon Musk goes, you know what? You're right. Holy shit, we got to go back in there and replace that or redo whatever. It was on YouTube a while ago. It was on Twitter too. So the thing about it is they're really good to bring in at the very, very end before you begin the actual physical project. All right. Hey, I'm getting tired. This is Mike Colleen at MikeColleen.com. I don't like talking about mismatching. In fact, this video did not make me feel good. So God bless you guys. See you next video. We're going to be more positive next one. Okay. All right. Bye.